3 days after we buried my mother, someone began sleeping on her grave. At first, I didn't believe it. The cemetery caretaker mentioned it casually when I went to drop off flowers. "There's been someone there at night," he said, "lying on the fresh soil, probably a homeless woman." He didn't sound concerned, just annoyed. Our village cemetery sits on a low hill outside town, surrounded by iron fencing and birch trees that rattle in the wind. You can see it from the road if you know where to look. That night, just before midnight, I drove out there. The air was damp and cold. A thin mist clung to the ground. My mother's grave was easy to spot, the soil still dark and newly turned, the wreaths not yet wilted. And there she was, a woman lying face down across the mound. She wore a long gray dress. My mother had been buried in that dress. I remembered because I helped choose it. Wool, simple, one she wore every Christmas. Her hair was loose and tangled, spilling over the soil. Her hands were pressed flat into the earth, as if she were holding on. I stood at the edge of the path, unable to breathe. "Hello?" I called. No response. I stepped closer, my phone light shaking in my hand. The beam caught the side of her face as she slowly lifted her head. It was my mother. Not exactly as she had been in the hospital, healthier, fuller, but undeniably her. The same narrow chin, the same pale eyes. She looked at me without blinking. Then the mist thickened suddenly, just for a second, and when it cleared, she was gone. The soil was smooth, undisturbed. I didn't tell anyone that night. The next morning, I told my sister, Elise. She listened quietly, arms folded across the kitchen counter. "You haven't been sleeping," she said carefully. "You're exhausted." I know what I saw. She held my gaze for a long time but didn't argue further. That evening, I went back, this time with Elise and our neighbor, Martin. We parked at the bottom of the hill and walked up without speaking. We waited behind a row of yew trees. At exactly 12:16 a.m., she appeared again. Not from the road, not from the gate. She seemed to emerge from the fog itself, walking slowly toward the grave as if she had always been there. The same gray dress, the same bare hands. She lay down on the soil and pressed her cheek against it. Elise inhaled sharply beside me. Martin whispered, "This isn't right." We stepped forward together. The woman sat up. Her head turned too smoothly, almost mechanically, until her eyes locked onto mine. They weren't glowing, they weren't monstrous, they were simply empty, reflective, like glass catching moonlight. Elise grabbed my arm and we backed away instinctively, not running, just retreating, like animals sensing something beyond understanding. When we looked again, the grave was empty. The next morning, the soil was disturbed, not deeply dug, but clawed at, thin lines cut into the surface as if someone had dragged their fingers across it all night. That afternoon, Elise admitted something she hadn't mentioned before. "Did you notice that Mum wasn't wearing her wedding ring?" I froze. Our mother never removed it, not once in 42 years. During the hospital days, it must have been taken off. Someone must have kept it safe. We called our aunt. After a long silence, she admitted she had slipped it into her handbag before the burial. She said she meant to give it back, but every night since the funeral, I've had the same dream. Your mother standing at the foot of my bed, not angry, just waiting. She brought the ring over that evening. It looked smaller than I remembered. We returned to the cemetery just after sunset. No pastor, no ceremony, just the three of us. I dug a small hollow at the head of the grave and placed the ring into the soil. Elise said a few words, not formal, just soft. Martin stood with his cap in his hands. The air was completely still. As we turned to leave, a breeze moved through the birch trees for the first time that evening. It wasn't strong, just enough to lift the mist from the ground. And behind us, very faintly, I heard a voice. "Thank you." Not loud, not echoing, just familiar. We didn't run. We stood there until the wind faded and the trees grew quiet again. The next morning, the grave was smooth. No marks, no disturbances. The caretaker never mentioned seeing anyone again. And for the first time since her death, the house felt lighter. The strange heaviness in the hallways, gone. I still visit her grave every Sunday. No one has ever been lying there since. And sometimes, when the wind moves through the trees just right, I feel like she's finally resting.